All right, all right, all right. Welcome to Mandatory Conversations Podcast with Mike Johnson. You know what it is. Today is Monday. And by the way, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to everyone, everywhere, just everywhere. I have my co-host with me on today, Mrs. Anika J. Owens. How are you, young lady?
I am great this MLK Day. So I was looking forward to this. I had a fun-filled day, and I was looking forward to ending my day with the podcast, with your podcast.
Yes. Yes, I've been looking. Listen, I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you for at least a week.
Okay,
At least a
ready.
week. When we first talked about what were we going to do for today, I was like, I'm not sure. And then this one thing landed in my lap. Dr. Jackie Walters of Bravo's Married to Medicine. She and her husband, Curtis, they put an article out, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I said, Anika, we got to tackle this right here.
Yeah.
This is when it's going to be juicy. Before we get started, please do me a favor. If you are a married couple, you know a married couple, you want to be married, please share this with everybody you know. They will want to be on for this because this is a very important topic and a very interesting topic at that. There's this thing or such a thing as called sleep divorce. Sleep divorce is when couples decide together to sleep in separate rooms in their homes. I found this absolutely amazing. I remember my grandparents did this years ago. I remember I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball, and Ricky, they had their own beds or whatever the case was. And so here it is. People are doing that today. That's a big deal. So Jackie Walters and her husband, they're doing it. And she talks about it. She goes into full disclosure as to why it is. She says, first of all, there are no problems with us. We're doing well. However, we want our own space. He wants his own space. I want my own space. So they were actually in the middle of a remodel and decided, you know what, while we're doing this remodel, let's create our own little man and woman escapes, on your end of the house and on my end of the house. We'll have our own little thing. And then when we want to get together, we'll come and get together. And I said, Anika, I don't know about this one. I want to know what people think.
I'm curious.
Married couples thinking out here. So I'm going to toss it to you. First, again, hello to you again, but I'm going to toss this to you because I want to know, what do you have to say about this, especially as a therapist?
Well, I think there's so many different reasons for a couple to sleep divorce. And I guess I don't even like that word. I think
that's the technical term.
Yeah, it's and I know that's what they call it. It just sounds so negative. I think people do it for many reasons. I wouldn't do it. It's not for me, but I can appreciate people wanting to do it for various reasons, whatever those reasons are. You may have a partner who snores a lot.
Yep.
You may have a person, somebody who has a crazy work schedule and you don't want to interrupt them as you get up. And I think with Dr. Jackie, she's a doctor, she's an OBGYN. So she's called the hospital to do various things, but it wouldn't be for me. But I respect people that make that decision. I'm like, how do you have that conversation with your partner? How do you do that? That's what I would be. That's what I'm curious about. How does that conversation even come up? Because what if you have somebody that says they don't want to do that?
Ooh.
It says, I'm not interested in doing that. And you want to do it. How do you manage that? So that's a little sticky. I don't think I wouldn't want to do it, but I don't like to do it.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? I was talking to my wife about this. I would never do it. And so, by the way, did you ask Fred if he would do that? Do you know if he would do that?
I didn't ask him, but I know he wouldn't want to.
Okay.
Sure. When I had a total knee replacement and I had to sleep in another room downstairs and our room is upstairs because I couldn't climb stairs.
Couldn't go up and down the stairs.
Yeah. So for a whole 2 months, I was in another room because I couldn't climb stairs and I didn't want him bumping my knee.
Yep.
So for 2 months, we did that. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't bad because my husband doesn't like the TV on. And so.
And you do.
I do. He puts his sleep mask on. And so it was probably kind of nice for him because, the TV wasn't on. And we don't have a TV in our room, but in this room we did. So
Interesting. Yeah. So what I did, I actually talked to Steph about it. I asked her, I said, would you do that? She was like, no, I would never want to do a sleep divorce or just sleep in separate rooms in general. And I told her I felt the same way, no matter what, even if we're mad at each other, or whatever the case might be, or something's going on, if she's sick or whatever, I still wouldn't want to do it. I remember during COVID, it was a big deal made about, if your husband and wife, what happens if your wife or your husband gets COVID? What do you do? I ain't gonna lie to you, nigga. My wife had COVID first, and I got wound up getting COVID second. I was just like, I'm not going to sleep in another room. You're sick, and I want to check on you first to make sure you're okay. I just didn't feel like, I didn't feel like it would be fair as a husband to have her sleep in a room by herself. I just felt like she would be isolated, right? And COVID was already a crazy thing anyway. And so we both wound up getting COVID. And I just said, we both just said, well, guess what? It is what it is. And if she gets sick, I don't leave the room. And if I get sick, she doesn't leave. We just kind of tough it out. And we just like, we'll figure it out. Even with all the other stuff, my wife is in menopause right now. And she was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, turn on the fan, open the window. I know it's 10 degrees outside. I'll just throw another 2 blankets on the bed. I'll turn on the fireplace. I'll get the electric heater. Like, I'll have all these things going at one time. Yeah. And I'm just like, you know what? I get it. You're going through this time of life. And I always think to myself, if it were me, I know she would do it for me. So I personally, I'm not for it, but I get it because, as you said, and what I'm understanding now, and something I didn't understand until I started looking at this subject matter, is that there are a lot of issues that could cause people to do it. Like you said, you had the accident, you hurt your knee, you had your knee, replaced or whatever the case is. And so you didn't want your husband to bump him, because I know how painful that could be, because I've had a knee injury. It's pretty painful. And so, and then what if you're working a hectic schedule and your husband is trying to sleep? He can't rest because you got these very odd hours, or vice versa. And you need to get sleep so that you're functional the next day. 100% get it. And so what I found, though, Anika, I started talking to other married couples about this. And I've been finding there are married couples doing this. Is not a new thing. And in fact, it's becoming trendy. There are so many more couples now who are doing it. One of the things I wonder with all of this is what are some of the negative impacts, though, of doing this, right? We know about the positive because we just talked about it. You'll get more rest, you're more functional, you're lethargic, some people even say they feel better because they've gotten such good rest. And they, it's just now it's necessary. They have to do it because, the type of jobs they have. But what are some of the negative things? I'll let you go first. Like I said, I did some research here, and I found some things that could potentially be a negative. And I'm pretty sure that the first thing you say is going to be what I'm thinking.
Spontaneous sex.
But you know what? Some people, they're like, we're both stuck on that, huh?
Well, the thing is, just the warmth of another person's body.
Yes.
Don't take for when my husband is traveling. I do not like the feeling of just being in the bed by myself. Sometimes I can't sleep well if he's not in the bed with me. So, and I've gotten used to it. So for over 20 years, and for you over 30 years, it's just like, it's just different. I guess, that's one. Just the warmth of his body, his presence. That's a negative.
That would be the intimacy part of it, right? That would be my number one too. And by the way, real quick, we really want to hear from you guys on tonight. So please flood us with your comments, questions, all those kinds of good things. We really want to hear from you, because married couples, this is something, at least I think it's something. Like I said, up until I saw this article, it never dawned on me that this is happening every day, and it's becoming even more trendy, where people are saying, hey, let's get our own rooms and we're still married. And I'm just like, woo, it just struck me, because I was like, I never would have thought to do that. Like, that's not something I would introduce to my wife. I wouldn't want to do it. And to your point, I know I sleep okay, when I'm not with my wife, because I have to do it so often because I travel so much. that I
Yeah.
gotta, I've had to get used to it because I gotta go to bed sometimes late, but then get up really early and I gotta be ready and prepared for that next day. As you well know, as we were on a cruise, we did like 50 million things like back to back to back
That's
to back.
right.
So you gotta figure out how to get your rest in, right?
That,
Um,
yeah.
but but she's told me, to your point, she's like, I hate when you're gone. Like it throws my whole day off. In fact, she was telling me she really doesn't sleep at night. She'll normally sleep during the day. Like she may have to take off a day to kind of get herself together, because I'm gone or whatever the case is. And then she says when I'm back, she sleeps well. And I appreciate her saying that. I appreciate her feeling like that because a husband should make his wife feel that way and vice versa.
Yeah. Although sometimes it's not bad, you know.
Yeah, let's talk about that part.
So sometimes it's really not. I can relate with your wife with menopause, right?
Yep.
And so you never want to, for me, reject your spouse because you're hot. And so, if my husband wants to cuddle and I'm having a hot flash, it's just like, how do you say, I don't want to cuddle because I'm hot? And
Yeah.
so I have to, though. I'm
Yeah.
hot. And I feel bad about that, but we have conversations about it. And he know when I start to flash and that I don't want a spoon.
Yeah.
I'm hot. I'm really hot. So
Yeah.
there's an understanding, but there are times that it's okay. But I wouldn't want this ongoing, a permanent thing. I wouldn't want that at all.
Yeah, you're right too. So I know my wife and we've had these conversations. Like I know when she's hot, she'll just tell me. She's like, I'm burning up. I can tell. I mean, she starts putting off clothes,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. I know she's hot, and I understand it now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm empathetic because I couldn't imagine having to go through that. And you're just at spontaneous times. It could be anywhere, anytime you catch a hot flash.
Yeah. Oh,
And it's certain times you can't do anything about it. And she's told
no.
me, she just explained to me what a hot flash is. Like she's like, imagine your body being on fire from the inside, but you can't cool it down. It's really nothing you can do about it. You just have to get through it. And you're just on fire. And meanwhile, people don't see it all the time, but you're perspiring, you're sweating. You're just trying to figure out, please God, don't let me embarrass myself because I'm sweating so much. You can sweat throughout your clothes, whatever the case is. And so I'm like, no, I don't want you to, on my behalf, listen, if you don't want the covers on, kick the covers off. Just understand if you see me with a bunch of covers on, understand you got the window open, it's 10 degrees outside, the fan is going,
That's
all
conventional.
this.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm like, you know what? I can tough it out. It's cool. I ain't gonna really worry about it too much.
Exactly. Like I said, and if you wanted to go into another room, just for the sake of, what, I got to get some sleep tonight because I got to do this and I got to do this. And, you don't want your sleep interrupted. I don't feel like it's a bad thing to request it if that's something that you need. But I think, speaking to your partner ahead of time, like you said, I'm not interested in, let's say me and my husband have a disagreement. I'm not trying to sleep in another room. That's the last thing you should do. I mean, it's tempting. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to you. I want you touching me. But, we ain't doing that. We're not.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of, a lot of conversation that you have before that even happens. Like, this is what we're not going to do.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute because and I want to ask you this, like how would you, I guess, work with someone who does want to do it, but the other spouse doesn't want to do it? Because like you said earlier, that could be a very tough conversation.
Yeah.
Like you feel like I need the space, but the other person is like, you're rejecting me. And that's one of the things that we have to be careful with in terms of, this type of arrangement,
Right.
because that could easily happen that, a person feels like the reason you're doing it. I heard what you said, but I feel like that's me being rejected because you're going to this other part, even though we're in the same house.
Yeah.
That's rejecting me. Like, you don't want me near you. Is it something I did? Is it something I said? Do you not love me anymore? Do you love me less now? All of these kinds of things could be going through somebody's head. And I can only imagine, as you said, like all of those feelings that somebody might be going through, if one is really strongly saying, okay, cool, let's do this. Da, 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 da. Talk to us about that. How would you counsel a couple like that? And have you counseled couples who have gone through this, by the way?
Well, yeah, I think actually, Michael, they've gone as far as living in separate homes. get married, but I know I don't want to take you too far off, but
No, take me all the way there because I want to hear about this.
yeah, I mean, I've had couples that go as far as they get married, and the understanding is we're going to live in separate homes, dwellings, and we both are, especially when you marry and you're older and
Mm-mm.
both established, you both have nice homes, and you meet up on the weekends. But you're married, but you know what? We're not gonna sleep, we're not gonna live in the same house, and so I respect that, especially if the two people. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But for couples that sleep in different rooms, I don't necessarily try to. I haven't necessarily had anybody that came to counseling because this was an issue. I've had couples basically say this is what we do, and one of the questions, when they're trying to reconnect, one of the questions that I asked is like, well, how does it work when you want to engage or have intimacy? If your door's closed, you got to knock, and it's just
Wow.
things like, I got to knock to come in your room. Like, what you doing? So it's just, to me, it's just a little bizarre. It's just a whole lot of little things that you have to consider when
Yeah.
you are sleeping in separate rooms. What's the rule? What are the rules? And so I haven't necessarily had anybody that have disagreed with it, but if they are in conflict with each other, I do say, you know what, you probably need to, take some time to figure out what days you can sleep together. Let's say the weekends are your days to sleep together, and through the week, because you're working or what have you, but there has to be some kind of compromise, because when you sleep together, I would say that's the most intimate, uninterrupted time you have with your partner. There's no phone calls, there's no kids bugging you. That's your personal time. And so when you miss out on that personal time where you inadvertently, bump into each other in the bed and your bodies touch, that is important.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to miss out on any of those things. So if I have a couple that is kind of, at odds with each other and they do sleep in different rooms, I would encourage, you know what, let's try to make it work where you guys are sleeping together so you guys can kind of build those connections. Because I would say sleeping is me and my husband hold hands at night when we're asleep. We
Yeah.
find ourselves holding hands, and I enjoy that. So I guess I'm just curious, when couples decide that, I'm not trying to question their relationship, but when you decide that, is it kind of selfish? I'm not saying you have to sleep together, but I do wonder though, like, what is the relationship really like? Because I don't think I would want to forfeit that.
Yeah. So before I got a couple questions. One, for the couple who actually decided to live in different homes,
Hmm.
were they in the same state, same city, or were they in different states and different cities?
Same city.
Same city, but they just lived in two different homes. And I'm assuming, like you, because I think you were saying this, they were an older couple, an established couple. They probably got married late life, like maybe in their 50s or 60s. So they already established all these other things separate and apart. And they didn't just want to give up what they've had or what they've built. So they
Yeah.
just kept them separate. One would come to the other's house and the other one would come to the other's house.
Yeah, sometimes, or you go, you hook up when you couldn't, well, not hook up, but you connect when you connect. You go out, dinner, whatever, then you go to your separate dwellings.
In an instance like that, Inigo, okay, I want to focus right here for a second. In an instance like that, and this is where we get the title from, is this still a marriage? Is it really a marriage at that point? Because if you're living in two different homes and you catch up when you can, I mean, is that still a marriage at that point? Or is that like almost like boyfriend and girlfriend? Because the way and this is no knock against it, I'm asking because I don't quite understand it, right? Because I've never done it. I don't think I could do it personally because I need the connection, I need the intimacy. I like you in my space. I'm not a clingy person, but I like you in my space. I like seeing you every day. I like talking to you every day, face to face. This is. I
Right.
like being able to sit across from you or even sitting next to you. Like you said, sometimes holding hands, watching a movie together, all these kinds of things. Like I want to be in your space and I want you to be in my space. That was the whole reason why I married you, because if I didn't, I'll just continue doing what I did before I got married, which was I'll just see you when I can see you. When my schedule is, when I'm available, I'll come and see you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think when you get older, you're kind of setting your ways, but you still want that companionship. You want the whole legality,
Okay.
relationship. God forbid, something happened to me, or that I think some people just want that security. We're spending time together. We're committed to each other. We're not trying to see nobody else. But I feel like if two people are, they have an understanding, and they're very intentional about making sure they connect, very meaningful connection. I feel like it can work. I think a lot of celebrities do it. When you
Oh
think
yeah.
of Shirley Ralph, her and her
I was
husband,
just thinking about her. I was gonna
yeah,
mention that to you
yeah, they
and
do.
ask you what you thought about that because she brags about it. She's like, I think she's in California. He's in Philadelphia. He's a
Yeah.
state official of some sort of. I don't know if he's a mayor or he's something that he is, but he's
He's
a
a
state official.
he's in politics. I'm not really sure. I can't remember, but you're right. He's in
Right.
politics.
They're on two different coasts, not to even mention two different states. They're in two different coasts. And she's like, when I'm in town, when he's in town, or when we need to get together, we get together. And I heard her say it and I heard her talk about it. And she said, and this is what I understood, it works for them.
Yeah.
And others who do it, it works for them as well. I was just curious about it because I'm like, man, that just seems you got to have a very open mindset or be very open when it comes to that. One of the things too, I mean, we're kind of, we I think kind of got on this, but we didn't really take it to the nth degree. But I want to hear from you here. One of the things that we can assume, and even from some of the studies I read, not even really assume at this point, we could take as gospel and truth. There's a decreased level of intimacy, and you really almost could grow apart because you're not together, because of the distance thing, because really, not having somebody in your space like that, it's easy to grow apart from. We all know it. We've done it before. If you ever been in a relationship and then you feel yourself growing apart, what do? You put distance between them. You see them less. You call less. You don't really want to be them as much, all that kind of thing. And we just know the distance and time and space just kind of, so what would you recommend for someone who's saying, hey, Anika, me and my husband, we're probably going to come see you, or we'd like to come see you because we are very strongly considering this. And we just want to make sure that when we do this, we've thought about as much as we can. Right. So for instance, you talked about, what are the rules of engagement? All right, listen, when my door is closed, you can't knock on my door. Or you can knock on my door. Or you don't have to knock on my door. You can just come in. Are there certain hours? Are you posting hours on your door that says Monday through Friday closed? Yeah, Saturday and Sunday open, from 7 to 7. Like, can I only see you for this many hours? What if I want to see you on a day that we didn't schedule? What if I'm feeling lonely and I need to come see you? What do I do if you are not available or you don't want to be available? Like all of these different things. Talk to us about that, because I would imagine, I personally, I would think somebody would come to see you if that was going to be the case. If you're and let me just say this, for example, or let me just say this, not even for example, let me just say this. I think you should go see someone like Anika if you're thinking about this. It's a major life decision, and it really could put you in a place that you don't want to be.
Yeah. I think, like you said earlier, Michael, there has to be some rules of engagement. You got to do a lot of prevention. You got to have the conversation about the why first. Why are you doing this? It's all why behind when you decide to do something like this. And I think we would explore the why. And let's say somebody is not necessarily for it. There has to be a level of compromise. And like I said earlier, it's a function of, okay, we'll do this through the week, but on the weekend, we are in the same room, right? I don't know who room you choose.
That's another thing.
That's another thing.
Or whose house, right?
Or whose house.
Yeah.
I would say it just takes some really unique kind of people to decide to do this. But again, you have to be very, they would have to be very on point with how they're going to connect with each other. Because like I said, when you're in the bed with someone, that's the one time that there is uninterrupted. You're the only two people in that bed. No kids, no pets, nobody, just you and your spouse. And so you got to figure out, like, how can we're taking this out, but what are we going to incorporate? in replace of this, because you're missing out on some very valuable time. What are you going to replace with this? Because it has to be something that you're going to replace, because although you may say to yourself, this is what I need, this is for myself, you are missing out on some bonding time, some connection. You're missing out on that. And so there has to be something that you're going to replace it with. That's what I was talking to Dr. Jackie and her husband, like, what are you replacing it with? Because you're taking away something so very important to a relationship, that you have to have something you're replacing it with that's equally as important.
Like, what would that be that replacing it with?
I mean, I would say, let me think about that, Michael. I think there has to be a lot of, date nights, not a lot. There has to be some, having dinner together, sitting down for, a lot of times when you're working a lot, you're not always eating dinner together. There has to be time where it's just the two of you. You're eating together, you're cooking together, you're doing something that's intimate together. I'm not saying you got to do it every single day, but you got to map out, like, these are the days that we're going to do things that's just going to be the two of us. No kids, no friends. It's just going to be us. So you'll have to be very intentional about doing things that require two people, a husband and a wife. You got to make time for intimacy. And if you're not, I'm not saying you got to schedule it, but
don't you though?
I guess sometimes.
Because what if on my door you can't, no pop-ups available? No pop-ups allowed. No pop-ups allowed.
It just sounds so bad to not sleep together. The more we talk about it, Michael, it just sounds really bad not to sleep with your spouse. But again, not judging, if that's what people are doing. Hey, go for it if it works for you. But at the same time, if I can say this, I feel like people that want to do this, and I'm not saying this is an absolute, do you think they're a little selfish though? So when you get married, I'm thinking, I mean, I get it. If it's health reasons, if somebody is sick, snoring, all those things that will keep somebody up, and you're working late shifts and you need to have uninterrupted sleep, I get those things. But what about the people that just decide to do it just to do it? In my head, I almost feel like it's just a tad selfish, because you don't want to share space or compromise like space. It's just like, that's why you get married, right?
Well, that's what I would think. I mean, and to your point, let's just back up a little bit, because I do want to stress something you just said. We're not knocking it if you're doing it. If it works for you, we want you to continue to do it, because we know in relationships, just because it works for us, Anika, doesn't mean it works for everybody.
That's right. You're absolutely.
And just because it doesn't work for someone else doesn't mean that isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But we got to be careful in that, because you could grow out of relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you want to avoid. Even the Bible talks about there is a time when a man and woman should refrain from probably being together. You're talking about sex, really. And in this instance, sometimes you need that space because you're working, or you just need to be in a mindset where you got to get something done. You're sick, whatever the case is. You just need that space, but you got to find time to come back together to be as one. Yeah. I guess for me, and I think it sounds like this is the case for you as well, how do you become one if you're in two places, two different places, right? It's challenging. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying it's challenging to do that. But there's some people, and here's another interesting dynamic. There are people who have been together for a while, Nika, who have now decided, like they did, like Jackie and her husband did, and they're not as old as they are. And I looked this up. He's 67. I think she's 68.
Is she? She's 60. No, I don't think she's 60. I think she's like 62 or something like that.
Nope.
Are you sure?
Yep. I looked it up.
Looked it up. 8?
Looked it up. That's what it said. At least the Google search I looked up, it said she was 68.
Really good.
Or she'll be 68 this year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But she probably, she may have a good plastic surgeon. And she's and I'm not saying for anybody else, but Black women, their skin don't, drink all the waters, taking care of themselves. I've seen women in their 70s look like they're in their 50s.
Wow.
Yeah. So, just because she doesn't look like it,
That's
but I say all that to say they're a little bit older, so I get what you're saying. But these couples now who have gotten into this place where they're older now, they've already been married. So let's say they've been married for 30 years and now they're saying, I want my own space. And this is where, to your point, I think when you're saying, oh, is that a little bit stingy? Because then it sounds like, or selfish rather, then it kind of almost feels like that, at least from, being outside looking in, because we've been married this long and now you want all the space, you want your own room, or you want your own house. I don't know if that's a thing, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure.
I think for some people to get along, if people don't get along, in some cases, and I'm not saying this about any particular, I don't know Jackie and her husband, but I guess if you don't get along all the time, you don't necessarily, and I'm like you, Michael, I'm not a clingy person. Me and my husband, we're not clingy. We're just very comfortable with, our separate space and our together time.
Mm-hmm.
We have that when we're up and moving around, work and all that type of stuff. But I feel like if that's what you agree to, I'm thinking, what is the relationship like? That if it's not any health issues, poor sleep hygiene, if it's none of those things where you're not ill, you're not flashing, like why?
Yeah.
What's the reason behind it? And like I said earlier, I said you really would have to have some very intentional interactions if you take that out of the equation of sleeping together.
Yeah. There's the one nuclear option, and I've heard this a lot, and I know people who have done it. They just don't want to get divorced. They're like, you know what, we've been together so long, financially, this would kill us. For some other reason, or a plethora of other reasons, I don't want to get divorced because it would just throw everything off. So we don't have to get divorced, but I'm gonna be in my own place and you're gonna be in your own place. We're not gonna see other people. We just, the whole thing of,
Cheaper to
keep her and him. Yeah.
Cheaper to keep him too nowadays, right?
Yeah, cheaper to keep her and him. So, it's one of those kinds of things. But I think the thing that you and I both kind of look at here, and we say, at least I know I'm thinking about this. I feel like in a situation like that, you could introduce the possibility, a high possibility of divorce, because you just can grow apart. I always talk to married couples, and I tell them, Anika, that when your children get to high school age, usually if they're in middle school, getting go like 9th, 10th grade, I always suggest this. If you haven't been doing date nights, start when your kids like 9th, 10th grade. Do a lot of date nights. Start doing it then, because what happens is by the time they get to the 12th grade, they've gone to college, it'll just be the two of you in a house by yourselves. You won't know each other. No. Because you have dedicated so much time and energy, which you should do, put into your kids, but you've not put that energy into your spouse. Right. And because you've not put the energy into your spouse, you tend to grow apart. So there is no sex life for the most part, right? There is no friendship for the most part. I know you.
Yeah.
Right? I remember when we used to, but because we haven't done it in so long, I don't miss not doing that with you anymore. I'm okay with not doing this with you as often as we used to. I'm okay with not even talking to you that much. I'm okay with not even seeing you that much because we've grown apart. It's been years since we kind of had a sit down at a table where it's just you and I, we're talking, or we're on a date night. And so I encourage couples to start that then, because the highest we've seen the divorce rate spike when children go off to school, right? A lot of times couples will divorce because I don't know you.
Yeah,
I know you, but I don't know you.
Yeah. It becomes too easy. Like you said, I think you make a very good point. Me and my husband, we started doing date nights when the kids were little. I mean, I remember wanting to take the kids with me, and he'd be like, nope.
Can't do it.
Nope.
That's not a date night. That's family night.
Oh my gosh. He says the same thing. He said, that's not a date night.
Yeah.
He said, that's family time.
Yeah.
He said, nope, they do not go. And I remember being upset about it. And later on, I understood it. Because I was a very, just protective mom. I mean, we have my parents here, my mom and my sister and his parents, his family, to watch them when they were little. But I just felt like they needed to go with us. She's like, no. But I quickly understood the importance of that. So
yeah, we already have to. So I mean, just if we're talking about marriages now, and this is what tonight's whole discussion is about, You got to fight for your marriage.
Yeah.
Every single day, you have to fight for your marriage. There's something, whether it be money, whether it be an illness, whether it be some situation with another family member. Hell, Nika, it could be a situation with your kids. Because let me tell you something, people, there's nothing like parents fighting over children. Like how you discipline, what you said to them, what you didn't do, how much you're going to do, how much you're not going to do. I don't want us to do that where somebody wants us to do all of it. We had a little discussion before this started. We talk about kids. It's so many different dynamics. And so you have to literally fight for your marriage and being apart. The Bible talks about two is better than one.
Yes.
And that's the honest to God truth. It's challenging when it's just one. And I think about it now since we, just came up, this thought is that what if you're going through a crisis in your own room? A health crisis. I don't know that you're going through you could die literally on my watch because I wasn't there to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm not knocking it if you do it. If this is what you've chosen. And like you said, for a number of different reasons, I understand it. Like some people have menopause, they really have it bad.
Yeah.
They really have it bad and they need to do this. Or you just really need to get your sleep. Not in those instances, but, in other instances, you might want to really give this some second and third thought as to whether or not that's really what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has to be a reason. And then there has to be a level of understanding. And like I said, replacing it with something where, like you said, date nights, eating together, just things that you do together, just the two of you, you would have to be very intentional about that. And like you said, we're not knocking it, but it's not something I would want to do. The whole ideal of having to knock or when is a good time. When I'm in the room, of course, me and my husband, we share a room. He don't, if the door's closed, he don't knock. He just come on in. I don't knock. I just come on in.
Yeah.
But yeah, because it's our room. But if it was separate rooms, you had to think, can I just bust on in here on you? Like I should be able to. What you doing?
Should I? It's funny you say that because then you start to think the permissions that a typical husband and wife would have, you don't necessarily have.
Yeah.
Right? Like ordinarily, if you're at home and you go downstairs to the kitchen to get something to eat or drink, you come back upstairs, you're not going to knock on the door to say, "Hey, Fred, I'm coming in. Is it okay?" "Hey, Steph, I'm back. I'm ready to come in." Like, it's just, and we're not making light of this. It's just trying to understand.
But I'm sorry, that's
like, how does it work?
Because that's what you, but I am curious, how do they do that?
Yeah.
These are good, like you said, we're not making light of it, but it's the truth though. Like, how do you do that? Do you knock on the door? Do you, I'm closed for the night, so I can't come in. So it's like you don't have access to that person. And I wouldn't want to not. I mean, I get boundaries and time apart and space, but when again, there would have to be a great understanding as to why we got to do this.
Yeah. Also, too, I want to put this out to the folks who are watching. We would love to hear from you, and especially if you're doing this. And I know this is highly personal, so a lot of people don't really want to talk about this. But if you don't mind sharing it with us, we would love to talk to you because we got some questions. Just trying to understand how does this work. And the reason we're doing it is because we want to not just have our own understanding, but Anika, somebody might come to us and they're saying, "Hey, we're going to go through it." And we just want to have, at least I do. I know you've already been through this. I want the expertise to be able to really be able to guide someone one way or the other, and maybe not tell them what they should do, but at least help them if they've decided, yes, we're going to go down this route. Or if one has said, "Look, I really have to do this and I want to do this," but the other one doesn't. So you're able to coach or help where you can help the other one understand, for the sanctity of your marriage, if you're going to stay married, your spouse wants to do this. So here, let's do this to try to make it easier for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm thinking though, Michael, again, like you're right, not making light of it. It was just the thought of not laughing at people making decisions to do that, but it's just the steps and the things that you have to do and the things that you have to consider. It just seems like so impersonal. It just seems like we're strangers.
Yeah.
Like it's like, man, we're married. But again, all respect to people who have to do that. But what's the thought? I was gonna say something, but I can't remember. The thought escaped me. Um, I don't know. But yeah, I just feel like there has to be some real intentional conversations about the why and making sure you respect each other, because I don't think I would talk anybody out of doing it. I would just try to talk them into, because if you have one person who doesn't want to do it and the one person who wants to do it, I often ask couples, how important is it to you that you have this?
Mm.
Say, oh, it's 100% important. Then I ask the other person, how important is it to you that you don't do this? Oh, about 50%. So we're gonna go with the 100%. We're gonna go with the person you said it's not that important to you that you don't do it, but it's 100% important that you do it. So you got to kind of just give like a rating in terms of how important is it to that person. If it's that important that you need to do it, hey, you got to do it, but you got to really be intentional about like how you, like you said earlier, the rules of engagement. How are we gonna, do we knock on each other's door? Do I got to knock before I come in? I may feel a certain way about that. I'm gonna tell you, I may feel a certain kind of way. So you test it out. Let's say you test it out for 2 weeks. We come together and we say, how does this feel? I don't feel right. So let's
Ooh, that's good.
let's kind of switch some things around a bit. What do we need to do differently? Okay, we need to do this, we need to do that. It just don't feel right. It don't feel natural. So then you got to go back to the drawing board and figure out like, okay, we need to kind of make some adjustments. So I would say test it out for a little bit and don't just make it permanent, because you don't want to agree to something unless you really know how you're going to feel about it. And just
Yeah.
be open to that and have the conversation. So let's test it out for a month and see what happens. And in 30 days, we'll come back together and we'll let each other know, we'll be very transparent about how we feel about it.
I love that. That's a great idea. I hadn't even thought to, that thought never, popped in my head. Like, okay, yeah, let's get us a test run.
Yeah.
Let's see what this looks like. Okay, let's drive this car for a week. Do we like it? Well, the brakes aren't what we thought they were. The seats aren't as comfortable as we thought. So maybe we might need to get, do something else. Or you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do it at all.
Yeah, exactly. But each person has to create a safe space for that said spouse to be honest. Like, I don't like this, and this is why I don't like it. Or I like this, and this is why I do like it. And don't be judgmental about it. And then, just figure out, if the compromise is, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or depend on what your schedule is, what days are more hectic, these are the days we don't do it, and these are the days that we do it. When you get married, you have to compromise. It can't be all your way.
Ooh, you just said a lot in that short bit of information you just gave. I think people don't sometimes realize, this is not for people who've been doing this for a while or whatever the case is, but people don't oftentimes realize, marriage is 100% compromise. You're never always, I shouldn't say never, but you're not going to always get your way. There are going to be some things that you really want to do that you're going to have to say, it ain't worth dying on this hill for. So let me do something different, or let me just go along with the plan, because it's just not worth it to, get into this whole argument about this, and then it leads to this, and then it's just worth it. Just say yes to this, and I'll come back and revisit on a later date and fight for the thing. But in this particular instance, I really want to focus on this, and I really want to focus, because as we talk and some of the notes I've taken, it keeps leading me back to this, that you need some form of counsel. Like this, it shouldn't be a decision that's made in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a haphazard decision. It shouldn't be forced on someone. There should be some level of discussion until everybody is at least comfortable, or has a level of comfort with the idea of going forward with this, because this drastically changes marriage. For some people, they might even go as far to say, Anika, I don't know if this is marriage anymore. Because I gotta do stuff that people who date do. Right? I gotta go through those things, and I didn't necessarily get married for this. Whereas I know some people might say it as, no, I quite clearly understand this is what it is.
Right.
Right. But for the most part, you may need to go see, well, you probably should go see someone to discuss this in and out, backwards and forwards, forwards and backwards, so forth and so on, until you get that level of comfort. Because, you got to be strong, first of all, Anika, when your partner comes to you and say, hey, I think I need my own room.
Oof.
Right?
Ouch.
Like as a partner, I'm sitting here thinking right now, even when I said that, and I saw your face when you said that, when I said that, yeah, exactly, right? I saw your face, and I know in my inside, I was cringing, like, what did I do wrong? Or what am I not doing? And these are the feelings, and this is why it's necessary to do this. Because, and this is where I think back to what you said about being selfish. This where it could be selfish because you're thinking so much about you that you've not thought about what it's going to do to your spouse.
Yeah.
And how it could be damaging. And this gets into a deeper, issues, because what if I already suffer from low self-esteem?
Yeah.
What then does that do? That's why I'm highly encouraging, seeking some outside counsel. But again, if you're already doing this doesn't apply to you. This is for people, who are thinking about doing it. These are all the things you got to think about before you do it. Because you can silently crush somebody and kill somebody on the inside with a question like, or a statement like, hey, hon, sit down for a second. I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about this for a minute now. And I'm going to get my own, I'm thinking about it, but I need to get my own room. And, then what about the financial cost of that too? Right? Some of the things you might do, equipping a whole nother room to your level of comfort and, all these other, it's just all of these things. It's not just a simple one-sided or snap decision thing that you do. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe we're going about it, we're in too deep.
I just think, do you feel like, Michael, that it could lead to something else? So you compromise on that, and then it opens the door to something else. That's what.
Well, hold on a second, Anika. Let's not beat around the bush. What is the something else you're talking about? I think I understand what you're saying, but what is the something else?
Well, not so much infidelity. It could be that, but it leads to wanting to do stuff by yourself. Okay, I'm going to go vacation by myself. And I'm not saying that, I'm going to do this by myself. It just becomes too easy to not say, no, I'm married for a reason. I'm married. Not that I need to be joined at the hip with my spouse, but I'm married because I wanted to do life with you. And part of doing life with you is sleeping in the bed, going on vacations together. So do you get accustomed to being alone? That makes me a little uncomfortable. And again, if people have talked it through and through and through and through, and they got the perfect science for it, go for it. But if you're just doing it haphazardly, like you said, and you're just deciding and you haven't had a conversation, that could be, the start to the end of your relationship. If you haven't really talked about the rules of engagement, like you said earlier, you got to talk about it.
Yeah. And again, that was one of the things that I saw from the different articles I, read, is that a good number of times, that's exactly what happens. It's just the gateway, right? It's like that easy off ramp that you could take. Like, okay, see you later, exit. You go over here, I go over here. And the next thing you know what? I ain't talked to you in 2 weeks. We're married.
I know.
And can you do that with kids, by the way? Like, is there a scenario, if you're in the same house, you could easily do that. But I mean, if you're in two different homes, that seems like that's like, oof, that would be crazy. But even if you're in the same house though, and you have small children or teenage children, and you're in one room and, your spouse is in another room. Then back in the 50s and 40s, I think that was something that was to be expected. That was a normal, everyday thing. Grandma, was upstairs, grandpa was downstairs, or whatever the case was. But in today's society, do you think that could be confusing to smaller children to see, or maybe if they grow up that way, maybe it's not confusing. I don't know.
It could be the norm for them. But if you start in the middle, let's say you started off sleeping together, obviously you're married, you have kids, and then they turn 12 years old, you decide you want your separate rooms. Yeah, I would feel like that's a great question. Like, I think you would have to explain that to your kids because they can start getting anxious. Like, what's happening? Mommy and daddy about to break up. You get a little nervous. And so it would be a family thing that you would have to have the family in on that. So that's a great point. Yeah, you got to have the kids in on it.
Yeah. Just wondering again, guys, we would love to have you chime in, especially if you're in this situation or one of these situations that we've kind of thrown out there. And if you aren't, what do you think, just as an onlooker, could you do it? Because
Yeah.
Anika and I have already admitted we aren't built for that.
I'm not.
we aren't built for that. Like for us, it would be like, nah, that's a non-starter. That's not something we can even introduce.
No.
Not here, there, or there, everywhere. And like I said, for me, my wife being sick, mad, whatever the case is, all right, good. You know what? We just gonna have to deal with this the way that we deal with it. We should go to bed angry anyway, because the Bible says that. But in the event, because we know people do this, if we're very honest,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to go to separate rooms unless there's something really going on. You might need that space to just cool off for a minute,
Yeah.
but you come back together. And I don't know if it's necessarily scheduled to come back together. Like, you can only come back at this time on this day of the week or whatever the case is. But, you come back together so that you can bond, that you can repair, and then, get back together to where you want to be.
You bring up something when you said that, Michael. You have people who hold grudges, and the separate room.
Oof.
It could be a function of you holding a grudge. I'm not a grudge holder. I think back in the day when I was younger, I could hold a mean grudge. I would just, yeah. But I thank God I was delivered from that. But you have people who are grudge holders and they will hold on something like a pit bull and won't let it go. And then that starts sleeping in separate rooms, walking in the house, don't talk to each other. And when it's that way, that's tough because that's the beginning to the end of an end of your relationship. If you have decided to not sleep together and you didn't decide, it just happened because y'all holding grudges, and then it just becomes comfortable and you never resolve the issue. That's a little dicey right there too. So it's just like you got some grudge holders, and when you have somebody that's unforgiving and they hold grudges, or no one accepts responsibility, or no one says sorry, and that creates that distance too. Why some people may sleep in separate rooms. It just happened and they
Yeah.
never put it back together.
Yeah. But that's a whole nother ball game too, right? Like if you're a person that holds grudges, and I'm just gonna say this as someone who's been married for 30 years, someone who does relationship coaching,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who coaches people who are married, you need to go get some help.
Yeah,
They need to go see someone like you, Anika, because holding a grudge against your spouse is different than holding a grudge against, like, let's just say your dad, your mom, your sibling, someone you don't live with, perfectly you live together, or someone in your relationship to that degree, that magnitude, being a spouse. That is a deadly combination for divorce, for real. That's
it is.
you you're going to definitely drive the person away from you, and you could even cause the person to resent you or even go as far as to hate you because you're holding this grudge you won't let go. I've had to tell people, I remember, and I don't think this was a grudge, but it could be borderline. I remember telling my wife this years and years and years ago that, and I don't, maybe this is not a grudge. You have to tell me if it is. And I don't know if it's not maybe a grudge, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood of having an issue with her dad that kind of lingered on, to where it started impacting us. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to tell her, I was like, I think you need to talk to your dad
Mm-hmm.
because this is impacting us. So
Absolutely.
the grudge that was not necessarily with me, it impacted me,
Oh yeah.
right?
Spill your
Yeah, it impacted me. And I was like, we can't get to the place where I would want us to be. And I think you want to be as well, because you got this blockade. There's this thing that you
yeah.
can't get past because you have it with him. So because you have it with him, you related to me. Most women don't realize this. And if we could take a second here, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but I've seen enough times to know that this is correct. A lot of times women will have issues with men because of their fathers. There's something that's happened or has not happened that will put them in a position where they hold a grudge against men. So now all men are dogs because why? My father was a dog, or my grandfather was a dog, or whoever that leading man in your life was a dog, or whatever the case was. And so there's this grudge that now your husband has to pay for something or pay for a mistake that another crime another man committed.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. If you don't resolve, those inner child wounds that you've had, with say a parent, whether be it a mom or a father, and then you get married because it's not resolved, you project
Mm-hmm.
onto your spouse. All that happens a lot. And
Yeah,
that's the beginning of the end too, if you don't correct it, if
right.
you're not aware of it. And the thing is, if you're the type of man, like you say, you're a relationship coach too, you're a pastor, so you understand, you're seeking solutions, like your wife, y'all both are seeking solutions. And so you don't want to stay in that space of just being disconnected. And so, but you have people who don't have that backing.
Yeah,
When you have one person, you have two people who are not willing to look within themselves and see themselves. And let's say we should, as a couple, we should be able to influence each other. So if I say something that I'm noticing, and you may not notice it because it's so normal to you, and I bring it to your attention, it's worth it to you to say, investigate that a little bit. Am I doing that? Oh, I got to fix that. You have a lot of people just don't. It's too painful to look within. It's so
mm-hmm.
easy to say, well, you made me. Like, no, I didn't make you. You made a choice. And so I just think it's such a blessing to have two people like you and your wife you are able to influence her in a way where she looks at herself, and it may not be immediate all the time, but after saying it a few times, and this is what I'm experiencing, there's a pattern here, you may want to, check that out. However choose to say it, especially if you want to say it lovingly. But yeah, that's definitely something that women and men have been known to do if they have unresolved childhood issues.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I don't want to come off as perfect because my wife and I, we're nowhere near perfect. But here's the thing: in 30 years, we've been through a lot, right?
Okay.
So we've been able to learn a lot, especially, oh God, for your first year of marriage, man. I always tell people, for
Y'all
me, we
too.
almost didn't make it our first year. It was tough. The
Because how old
first year,
Michael?
I was 20. My wife, she was 23. I was 25.
Wow, that is that. I could not imagine being married at that age.
Yeah. Well, me looking backwards, I can't either. And
I
I
was
almost
not
didn't make
ready.
it. Yeah,
I would
we
be
almost didn't make it.
every day. That's who I was. I was the breakup queen. It's just like it was one strike out. Like nope, nope. I had this guy tell me, "You give up too quick." I'm like, nope, I ain't doing that because again, my father, like
Yeah,
I love him, but he wasn't the best, at certain things, and I just wasn't tolerating. And I didn't see my mom tolerate it either.
yeah,
She had boundaries, she had standards, and I just knew what I was going to accept and not accept. And I'm
yeah,
like, not accepting that. Bye. I
yeah.
wasn't. Yeah,
It was tough.
I
It
detached.
was tough. But I say all to say, all of these different things we've gone through, we've learned as we've gone along, and we've learned also too, don't repeat those mistakes.
Yeah,
Like, some of this stuff we got to get past, we got to keep moving. Like, okay, that was that. Let's go. Let's keep it moving. And she's had to point out some things to me as well. I don't want to make it seem like it's all on her, but I'm just saying. And in talking about this, nigga, it just dawned on me every single podcast that you and I do before we get off the podcast. God always drops something in my spirit as
love it.
to something I think that we should consider doing for the next podcast. And this might be a series in terms
Mhm.
of a podcast because you made me think about it. And I just think back to some of the things that early on in my marriage, my wife and I went through. And some of those things, not everything, but some of those things were related to. Oh, we lost Anika there. I'll just talk to you guys for a minute till she joins or rejoins us. Some of the things that she was going through was related to her dad. And so, what I would like to do is to come back next week and maybe for a few weeks talk about daddy daughter issues or daddy daughter issues because I know a lot of women who have, there's Anika right there. She fell
I'm
off.
sorry, guys. Okay.
That's all right. I was saying, Anika, was telling everyone that maybe we should look at doing a daughter daddy series or a daddy daughter series to help women deal with some of these past hurts, issues, pain. And I don't even want to say past, I'm going to say current. I don't even know what the proper word would be for, or technical term that would be to describe someone who's suffering with a past trauma today. They're still suffering with it. They haven't yet got past it. But I know growing up and dating when I was younger, a lot of women had issues with men because of the unresolved issues with their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see 40 and 50-year-old women while on the outside and age-wise they're 50, but they're 12 because they haven't been able to move past 12 because that's where that traumatic thing happened and it's really stunted their growth. And so I'm thinking maybe we could, and this is mainly going to be on you at this point now because I'm kind of leaning to you and your expertise. And because I do know a lot of women who are suffering in their 50s right now. Because I look at sometimes I look at a lot of these successful Black women, especially, who they have everything in the world except what they want now, except a husband or a boyfriend or some significant other in their life. And they've gone through this one and that one and this one and this one and this one, and they can't seem to figure out what the heck is going on. And I would dare say a lot of it has to do with unresolved traumas from their past, especially related to their fathers. Because a lot of these women don't even talk to their fathers. Some don't even know their dad. Some they haven't been able to work up the courage to be able to approach their fathers, to be able to say, hey, you did this to me, this, so forth and so on. It's so many different things. Maybe there's this opportunity where we can start working on it. And then, of course, we got to deal with men because men have these issues with their mothers as well. So we don't want to, it's the daddy-daughter thing and then it's the son, mother-son thing. And so we can start looking at doing some of those things because these all tie into having healthy relationships.
Oh my gosh, you hit the nail right on the head. You are absolutely right. But like you said, just finding the starting point for a series, I think there's so much to explore in that arena when it comes to mother and daughter, father and son, father and daughter, and mother and son. There's so many lessons. And I think for the most part, I think a lot of women will say, yeah, I can become a better version of myself. And then there's still men out there who are not looking to connect with women. I think some men are just so content with just being single.
Yep.
They're content. There's no, they're just happy with life the way it is. And I don't know if it's, women just give too much. And so it doesn't really make the man have a real need to take it to the next level. I mean, I don't know, like, or get better. It's just, like you said, the conversations are endless when it comes to that. They are endless. And sometimes I get very frustrated with it because I have so many single girlfriends and it's just like, they're beautiful women. And it just saddens me that, because we want the men to do the approaching, how do we make those connections? And that's what I want me and you to do. I want us to create, because the talking is good, but I think some women want action. We want to see our men and women turn that corner, because there's some women there that both on both sides that are in need of healing. But I look forward to the day that we can have some kind of retreat, I like working with married couples, but I also like working with single people too, because they want to make the connection. They want this gift of a marriage that we have.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I look forward to it too. So I don't know, we'll pray on it, give us some thought, but I would love for us to get into a conversation about that. And, and of course that has to be a series. That can't be a one-off because that's just too much. We got to start and we got to cut it off somewhere, but I would love to see us get into that series and then talk to figure out, how do we fix this, right? And for some people don't even realize that the reason their relationships have failed so many times is because of you haven't fixed something back here.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. And I think sometimes people live in it so long they don't know it's a problem.
And then there's that.
Yeah. So let's raise some awareness, and then you raise the awareness, and then let's do something about it. Now that you know, what you gonna do about it?
Exactly. With that said, all right, we're at the end of another show. It was a great one. Ooh, sleep divorce. I know you hate that term. Maybe we have to come up
I
with a new term
do, but
for
it's the term. That's what it is. But I do.
It's the term.
I hate the
What
D
you
word.
do?
I hate the D word. I hate divorce.
Yeah.
But I hear it. I hear you.
I'm with you. I hate it as well.
Mm-hmm.
In any event, that's it for us. We will be back on next week. Do us a favor, please. Go out to Mandatory Podcast with Mike Johnson and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It helps. It helps. Also, like the channel as well. That also helps. It helps the algorithm, helps to grow. Please tell and share this podcast with other people. Anika and I will be back on next Monday. We haven't decided the title for next Monday or what the topic is going to be, but we will be back. God willing, we'll be back next week.
That's right.
And we're going to have a juicy one for you. And I personally, I want to get into this, Anika. I really would like to get into these issues with our parents because, man, oh man.
That's good.
Oh, God.
I need it. It's really needed.
It's so needed. Also, too, you can still leave us questions and comments even after the podcast is over, and we'll come back and answer them for you. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Again, this is Mike Johnson. That is Anika J. Owens, and we are out of here. Thank you so much for joining us. See ya!